I spent 45 minutes digging through the junk drawer this morning for one single AAA battery, and I still didn't find it. I told the kid at the register this while he scanned my stuff. The cashier, a teenager with a haircut he clearly did himself with kitchen shears, just stared at me. He didn't say anything. He just kept sliding the bulk packs of toilet paper and the oversized jar of mayonnaise across the scanner. The store felt like a zoo. It was Sunday afternoon in the suburbs, and every single person in this part of Ohio seemed to decide that today was the day to stock up. I could see people 3 aisles over fighting over the last rotisserie chicken. While the kid struggled with a barcode on a gallon of olive oil, I pulled my phone out to check the joint account. I wanted to see if the property tax payment cleared so I could stop worrying about the city sending another notice. While I was in the app, I opened Zillow. I looked at the estimate for our house again, and the number just sat there, mocking me. We're stuck. Neither of us has enough in savings to buy the other out, and moving means starting over in a market we can't afford. My thumb stopped mid-scroll. I saw a charge from a hotel in Columbus. Not a cheap motel, but one of those places with a lobby that smells like expensive soap and people who wear suits. The charge was from 3 nights ago. I looked up at the cashier. He still looked confused by the olive oil. I felt a chill. Travis told me he was in Columbus for a regional sales meeting 3 nights ago. He said he stayed at a boring corporate Marriott. This charge was for a boutique hotel called the Sterling. The kid finally got the oil to scan. I paid, grabbed the cart, and pushed it toward the exit. My mind was already 3 hours ahead of me. Driving home, I thought about our town. It's one of those Rust Belt places where you can't buy a gallon of milk without running into someone you went to high school with. Everyone knows who cheats, who is broke, and whose kid is failing algebra. I spent 20 years building a reputation as the stable one. I'm the one who keeps the house together while Travis pursues his passions. When I pulled into the driveway, Travis was in the garage. He hunched over his workbench, tinkering with something, his back to me. He didn't hear me come in. Walking into the garage, I smelled old oil and sawdust. It's his sanctuary. I don't move anything in here. Not a screw, not a rag. I stood there for a second, holding a bag of frozen peas that started to drip on my shoe. Hey, I said. Travis jumped. He nearly knocked over a tin of nails. He turned around and gave me a quick, tight smile. He rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes darting toward the workbench before landing on me. You're back early, he said. The lines were fine, I lied. I set the groceries on the laundry machine and watched him. He acted twitchy. It wasn't a new thing, but it got worse over the last 6 months. He'd be in a room with me and suddenly remember he had to check an email. He'd leave his phone face down on the coffee table like it was a live grenade. Did you get the batteries? He asked, stepping away from the bench to help me with the bags. I didn't find them, I said. I followed him into the kitchen. As he put the mayonnaise in the fridge, a small slip of paper fluttered out of his pocket and landed on the linoleum. I stepped on it instinctively, then leaned down to pick it up. It was a receipt from a high-end jewelry store in the city. I felt a pit in my stomach. Jewelry, Columbus. I looked at the date. It was from 2 weeks ago. The amount was nearly $800. What's this? I asked, holding it up. Travis stopped moving. He didn't look at the receipt. He looked at the toaster. Oh, that, he said. I'm breathless. Look, I had your earrings taken in for a professional cleaning and a prong repair. I wanted it to be a surprise for our anniversary next month. I stared at the paper. The store was Everly & Co. I remembered those earrings. The small diamonds my father gave me. One of the backs had been loose for years. You did? I asked. Yeah, honestly, I forgot I even had the receipt in my pocket, he said. He finally looked at me, and for a second he looked completely sincere. I felt a wave of embarrassment. I felt petty. Here I was, spiraling because of a hotel charge and a receipt, and he was actually doing something thoughtful. I apologized under my breath and started putting the frozen peas in the freezer. I texted Jen while Travis was in the other room. Jen is the kind of friend who doesn't do emotional support. She does spreadsheets. I told her about the hotel charge, and she asked if I'd checked the corporate travel policy to see if they reimbursed boutique stays. Her boring, useful question made me feel like an idiot for even noticing the charge. But the hotel charge didn't go away. A cleaning for earrings doesn't explain a $300 night at the Sterling. After the kids went to bed, Travis went back out to the garage to finish a project. Sad. I worried about what I'd have to tell the kids if this was actually happening. I didn't want to poison them against their father, but I also didn't want to lie to them for the next 5 years. It turned the whole thing from a drama into a practical problem. I waited 10 minutes. Then I went out there. The garage was quiet, except for the humming of the water heater. Travis left the side door open to let in the cool night air. I walked over to his workbench. I knew I shouldn't be snooping. I've always been the one who trusts, the one who maintains the peace. I started with the top drawer, screws, washers, a broken flashlight. Nothing. The second drawer held old manuals and sandpaper. Then I saw the heavy-duty metal toolbox. He usually keeps it locked with a small tap. It wasn't locked tonight. He must have forgotten in his rush to get inside for dinner. I lifted the lid. Underneath a layer of greasy rags and a set of socket wrenches, I saw a small black plastic object. It was a phone. A cheap prepaid burner phone. I picked it up. The phone vibrated. A text message flashed on the screen from a contact he saved only as X. I stared at the screen. The phone felt warm in my hand, a cheap piece of plastic you'd buy at a Speedway gas station. I stood there in the garage, in a town where the biggest scandal is usually who's cheating on their diet, holding a burner phone. My heart hammered against my ribs, that shallow rhythm that makes you feel like you can't quite get enough air. I didn't know if I should put it back under the rags or go inside and scream. The side door creaked. I jumped and nearly dropped the phone. Travis stood there, squinting against the dim light. He held a glass of water, his shoulders slumped in that way he gets when he's finally winding down for the night. He stopped dead when he saw me by the workbench. "What are you doing out here?" He didn't move. He just watched me. My face burned with that prickly heat of being caught doing something wrong, even if the reason for doing it was right. I didn't hide it. I couldn't. I held the burner phone up between two fingers like it was something disgusting I'd found on the sidewalk. "Who is X?" Travis didn't react immediately. He took a slow sip of his water, his eyes tracking from the phone back up to my face. He let out a long, heavy sigh and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He said, his voice sounding breathless. "It's for work. Some of the new leads don't want their numbers tied to the corporate system. It's a privacy thing. I use it to vet people before I put them in the CRM." "Since when do you vet leads on? A prepaid phone from a gas station?" He shifted his weight and looked past me toward the water heater. "Honestly, Michelle, I think you're just overthinking this. You're doing that thing again, the spiraling." That hit me harder than a shout. He didn't sound angry, he now sounded concerned. He sounded like a man talking to a wife who was losing her grip. And for a second, I actually believed him. I thought about Jen's text from earlier. Jen always asks those boring, useful questions about travel policies and expense reports. I felt a wave of embarrassment. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe the stress of the house, the kids, and the feeling of being stuck in this zip code was finally making me snap. "The hotel, Travis. The Sterling. You said it was a Marriott." He turned toward the door and gestured for me to follow him inside. The Marriott didn't have any rooms. I had to pivot. "I didn't mention it because I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd turn a simple booking change into a federal case." "Come on. The kids are asleep. Just leave the garage stuff alone." I followed him into the kitchen, but I didn't put the phone back. I slipped it into my cardigan pocket. I didn't argue. I couldn't find the words to fight him when he was acting like the only adult in the room. I watched him put his glass in the dishwasher and head toward the bathroom. Once the shower started humming through the walls, the doubt shifted. The overthinking comment felt less like concern and more like a shield. He hadn't actually explained why. X was texting him at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night if he was just vetting leads. I didn't go to the bedroom. Instead, I went to the small office nook in the hallway. I'm not the kind of person who goes looking for trouble. I've spent 20 years managing the calendar, paying the utility bills, and making sure the kids have the right shoes for gym class. I like order. I like knowing where the money goes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the order we had was a lie. Pulling out the accordion folder, where we keep the important papers, I flipped through the mortgage documents. We've lived in this house for 12 years. It's a decent place, but the neighborhood has stalled. I thought about the Zillow estimate I'd checked earlier. We were trapped by the equity, or the lack of it. Lifted her chin and said, we didn't have enough to buy each other out if things ever went south, and we certainly couldn't afford to move somewhere that didn't feel like a relic of the 90s. I searched for the most recent quarterly statement to see the principal balance. If he was vetting leads and staying at boutique hotels, maybe he was making more money than he told me. Maybe there was a secret savings account. I found the statement from 3 months ago. Then I found a letter I hadn't seen before. He had shoved it into the back of the folder, behind a property tax notice. It wasn't a statement. I found a confirmation for a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. My hands started to shake. I looked at the amount. He didn't take out a small amount for a kitchen remodel or a new roof. He took out nearly $80,000 in 3 large chunks over the last 6 months. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. We didn't have a new roof. The kitchen still looked like the same beige nightmare we'd had since we moved in. No new cars sat in the driveway. I felt sick. I didn't know where the money went, but I knew it wasn't in our joint account. I looked at the date of the last draw, 2 weeks ago. That matched the date on that jewelry receipt I'd found. The shower stopped. I heard the bathroom door open and heard Travis humming to himself. I quickly shoved the HELOC letter back into the folder and closed it. I stepped away from the desk just as he walked into the hallway, drying his hair with a towel. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who had successfully convinced his wife she was crazy. You still up? He asked. Just checking the calendar for tomorrow, I said. My voice sounded thin. Right, good. He leaned in and kissed my cheek. He smelled like soap. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. I stood there for a minute, feeling the weight of the burner phone in my pocket and the knowledge of that loan in my head. I went into the bedroom and lay in the dark, listening to him breathe. I thought about the kids in the next room, and the fact that our house, the only thing we actually owned, was suddenly worth $80,000 less than I thought it was. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I saw a text from my mother-in-law. Hope you guys are doing well. Travis mentioned he was working on some exciting new ventures lately. Is everything okay? The screen blurred as I stared. Ignoring my mother-in-law's message, I read the words, exciting new ventures, until the letters lost all meaning. Beside me, Travis snored, his deep breaths filling the room. For 2 hours, I lay still, eyes fixed on the burner phone, resting on the chair across the room. Kids fought over granola bars, while the scent of burnt toast filled the kitchen. Hunting for the twins' soccer forms, I finally found them crumpled at the bottom of the laundry hamper. A steakhouse receipt from Columbus lay tucked beside them. I paused, searching my memory for a trip to Columbus, then remembered his quarterly review dinner from weeks ago. Tossing the paper into the trash, I shook my head. Leaning against the counter, Travis scrolled through his phone. He looked exactly like the man I'd been married to for 20 years. Nothing about his posture suggested he had drained $80,000 from our home. Did you see the email about the soccer deadline? I asked. He didn't look up, offering only a grunt. Yeah, I'll handle it. Trust had vanished. Not a word he spoke felt real. After the kids caught the bus and Travis drove away, I stayed behind. Creeping toward my workbench, I grabbed the burner phone and sat on a plastic milk crate to unlock it. All night, the identity of X had haunted me. Scrolling through messages, I found a series of forwarded emails. Regina R. Weaver's name appeared repeatedly. She wasn't a lead. She was a consultant for a private equity group in Columbus. Sat in the inbox. Opening it, my chest tightened. This wasn't a sales contract. It was a transfer of intellectual property. 10 years ago, I had developed an auditing framework for my firm to track supply chain leaks. My old boss helped me patent it, and while the company used the system, I kept the personal rights to the methodology. It was the only piece of my career that belonged solely to me. The contract detailed a sale. Using a shaky, rushed version of my signature, Travis had signed on my behalf, selling the full rights to the Gonzalez framework to a holding company managed by Regina Weaver. The price was $120,000. Sitting on the milk crate, I stared at the numbers. $120,000 from the patent, plus $80,000 from the HELOC. $200,000. Opening Zillow, I checked our home's estimate. The value had dipped. In a town where everyone went to high school together and nobody ever left. The numbers didn't add up to a way out. The mortgage loomed over us, and my husband had sold the only thing I had built for myself. Exciting new ventures meant something else. Messages between Travis and Regina weren't romantic. They were frantic. He begged her for more time, rambling about a Cottree node startup that was just about to pivot. He had poured the IP money and the HELOC funds into a digital ghost. The garage door groaned open. Jumping, I nearly dropped the phone, shoving it under a greasy rag just as Travis walked in with a folder. "Forgot my quarterly reports," he said. He stopped, scanning my face and the workbench. No guilt touched his expression, only annoyance. "Why are you still here, Michelle? I thought you had a meeting at 9. My legs shook as I stood up. "Who is Regina Weaver?" Travis froze. After a few seconds of stillness, he let out a long breath and looked at the ceiling. "I was going to tell you," he said, his voice thin. "It was a short-term play. I saw an opportunity to use your framework to get seed funding. I knew you'd say no because you're too cautious. I just needed a bridge loan. You stole my patent. You forged my name." He stepped toward me, though he kept his distance. "It wasn't stealing. It's our life. Everything we have is shared. I was going to buy the rights back once the node went live. The market shifted. It's just a volatility issue." "Where is the money?" He looked away, staring at some old paint cans. "Most of it's tied up in a liquidity pool." "It's not gone, it's just inaccessible for a few months." Vague answers about liquidity pools left me cold. I didn't argue. Watching him pick up his folder and walk to the car, I waited for his taillights to disappear before locking the front door. Survival mode took over. Jumping on the computer, I changed my personal email password and logged into my retirement account to check the 401k. A new document appeared on the screen as I listed every shared account. Photos of the HELOC letter, the burner phone messages, and the forged contract filled my camera roll. After uploading them to a private cloud folder, I sent the link to Jen. Not the emotional type. Jen immediately texted back to ask if the HELOC was a fixed or variable rate. I stared at the forged signature, the practicality of her question fading. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter appeared. "Mom, did you pay the soccer fee?" The coach said the roster closes tonight, or I can't play. Looking at the empty counter where the registration forms had been, I wondered if the joint account had enough to cover it. I didn't check. Sitting in the silence, I stared at the text, imagining the words I would have to use to tell a 10-year-old that her father had gambled away my life's work. 20 minutes passed before I checked the account again. After staring at the wall in a blur, I logged into the app. The joint checking held $412. That balance wouldn't cover the kids' soccer registration or the electric bill, let alone the mortgage and groceries. A crumpled receipt poked out of Travis's jacket pocket on the chair. Grabbing the slip of paper, I saw a charge for a hotel in Columbus from 3 weeks ago. My hands shook. For the next hour, I paced the room, imagining who shared that bed while he claimed to be at a networking seminar. The receipt stayed in my purse for days. I waited for him to slip up, certain that this was the proof of an affair. Then he mentioned a car breakdown on the way to a meeting. He'd crashed at a roadside motel. The revelation left a hollow feeling in my gut. Travis hummed a song as he walked into the kitchen. Without glancing my way, he reached for the coffee. "Travis, why is the account empty?" He stopped with his hand on the pot. He didn't turn around. "It's not empty. There's a few hundred in there." $400 doesn't cover the kids' fees and the lights, Travis. He finally turned and leaned against the counter. He looked tired, his eyes narrowing as if I were speaking a foreign language. "Look, I just need a few days," he said. "Regina said the pool is unlocking on Friday. I'll transfer a few thousand as soon as it hits. You sold my patent to a holding company. You forged my name. You can't just transfer a few thousand. To make this go away." He sighed and looked at his feet. "I mean, Michelle, it was for us. I just didn't want us to be stuck in this town forever. I wanted us to actually move, not just look at Zillow." Ignoring him, I opened the soccer website. I paid the fee using my personal savings, the account I'd built from consulting gigs over 5 years. My stomach churned, knowing I was funding the man who robbed me. Called that evening. Instead of asking how I was processing the news, she went straight to the logistics. Who is officially on the deed? She asked. Does the mortgage have an escrow account for taxes? I told her everything. She hummed in response. Check your Zillow estimate, she told me. Then check the actual comps for the neighborhood. If you can't afford to buy him out, and he can't afford to buy you out, you're basically trapped in that house until one of you dies or the bank takes it. That thought kept me awake for a week. After comparing the estimate to our debt, the reality set in. We were stuck. In a town where the mills closed decades ago and everyone knew everyone, the house was our only asset. But with the $80,000 HELOC, we were barely above water. I met with a lawyer 3 days later in a strip mall office. He knew Travis's cousins. For an hour, he pored over the forged contract and the emails from Regina Weaver. The problem, the lawyer said, clicking his pen over and over, is that the holding company can claim they acted in good faith. They have a signed contract. Proving Travis forged it is easy, but getting the IP back is a different story. They've already integrated your framework into their systems. They aren't just going to hand it back because your husband is a liar. I want it back. My voice sounded flat. You can sue for the IP or the money. But since Travis spent the money on this crypto node thing, you're chasing a ghost. Travis is legally liable, but he doesn't have the assets to pay you. Not unless we lien on the house. The following month passed in a haze of resentment. I still made the school lunches. I still handled the soccer carpool. At dinner, I sat across from Travis and listened to him talk about his day at the office, as if he hadn't gambled away my professional life. One Tuesday, I found a Tupperware lid in the cabinet that didn't fit any of the containers. The small mismatch triggered something. I screamed for 10 minutes about the lid, the kitchen, and his inability to manage a plastic container, let alone a financial portfolio. He blinked, frozen, while I hurled the lid across the room. I stared at the plastic on the floor, my chest heaving. He tried to apologize a few times after a couple of beers. I just wanted to be the one to provide for once, he'd mutter at the TV. I stopped throwing things. I stopped talking to him about anything that wasn't the kids or the bills. To avoid poisoning the kids against their father, I kept the details vague, though I couldn't lie about the canceled lake trip. I told them, Daddy made a mistake with some money. We attended mediation in November. In a sterile conference room, a mediator watched us with the exhausted eyes of a man who had seen 1,000 marriages collapse. Travis didn't defend himself. He just stared at a legal pad. The numbers on the spreadsheet were brutal. The mediator split the HELOC debt, despite my lawyer's argument that Travis should carry it alone. The compromise stood. Travis would waive his right to a portion of the home equity if I didn't press criminal charges for the forgery. It's the only way you get any immediate value, the mediator said. Otherwise, you're spending $10,000 in legal fees to chase $100,000 that doesn't exist. I looked at the numbers and the custody schedule. Alternating weeks, holidays split. We were just two people dividing up the wreckage. At one point, I asked Travis exactly how much he'd lost in the crypto node. He refused to look at me. Most of it went to the fees, he muttered before shutting down. He never gave me a total, leaving me to wonder if he still hides an account somewhere. When it was over, Travis stood up and offered his hand. I ignored it, grabbed my folders and walked out. Michelle, he said, his voice sounding small. I really am sorry. I didn't look back. My phone buzzed in the parking lot. A text from my therapist. I stared at the screen for a long time. The work I'd spent years perfecting now belonged to a company in Columbus. For 6 more months, I had to live in that house until the paperwork cleared and we could sell it without losing everything. Putting the phone away, I started the car. I don't know if I should have taken the deal or pushed for the criminal charges. Has anyone else dealt with IP theft in a divorce? I'm totally lost. Thank you so much, Michelle, for trusting us with your story and sharing such a heartbreaking and complex experience. It is absolutely devastating to realize that the man you spent 20 years with, Travis, could not only gamble away your home's equity, but literally steal your professional legacy and sell it off to Regina Weaver's holding company. The level of betrayal involved in forging a spouse's signature to fund a failed crypto node startup is just staggering. Michelle is now left wondering if she made the right move by accepting the mediation deal just to get some immediate value out of the house. This leads me to a question for all of you. Should Michelle have played it safe to secure what equity she could? Or should she have pushed for criminal charges for the forgery and the theft of her intellectual property, even if it meant risking more legal fees and a longer battle? We want to hear your thoughts on this. If you have ever dealt with financial betrayal or IP theft during a divorce, please leave your advice for Michelle in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story. We'll see you in the next one.